Welcome. This is the Aspire Show where we chat with innovators and look at the amazing science and innovations. Brought to you by Science Centre Singapore, the Singapore Institute of Technology and Neon Aeronautics. Now, someone actually asked me, what is deep tech? So deep technology sounds very scary, right? Or sounds like you have to really spend a lot of works on this and doing a lot of research. So I think research is needed for us to have new discoveries so that we provide new solutions to existing problems and maybe disrupt the existing products and the industry. So research is needed and is probably the front end of that technology or science. And obviously we deal with since we deal with technology, we have programs, research programs. Some of people are doing PhD, doctorate programs. Some people are doing postdoc to come out with all these new inventions and subsequently innovations. So yesterday we have these robots, and these robots is ferrous-based, that is magnetism, based on the science of magnetism, and it can climb on the wall, on the ship, climb on the surface of the ship or a ferrous material, overhang and stay at the ceiling and do inspection and welding. And we learned that yesterday there's a case reported about inspector that goes into the ship, one of the bunker, and two of them died. And the reason is there's not enough oxygen. So why do we need to send people in such dangerous place? We can actually send in robots. We can climb the wall, do inspection, do welding. All right. So that makes the world a better place. Now today we're going to also talk about robotics, but different from the industry of ship. Instead, we are going to healthcare. And the guest we have today is Dr. Yap Hong Kai, who is working on robotics, but not on the magnetism part of it, on the using air to help patients. And what he do, let's go and talk to him. Okay, this is Dr. Yap Hong Kai. As usual, I'm going to call him Hong Kai.
Yeah.
Okay. Co-founder and CTO of Rosesso. We got smart people here. Always have first-class degree or first-class honors in Bachelor of Engineering. Obviously, done his PhD, published a lot of publication and files quite a bit of patents. And see what's the most important thing here. You see 2019 Forbes 30 under 30. All right, smart guy. Okay, right. So I will let Hong Kai introduce what he do and what kind of science or discovery that you work on, and then we'll follow the normal conversations on science, STEM education, basically science and innovations and entrepreneurship. Okay? Yeah, Hong Kai.
Hello everyone, I'm Hong Kai from Rosesso Technologies. So I'm actually one of the co-founder and currently is the CTO of Rosesso Technologies. Yep. So I will just go through some slides to introduce our company and our products, and in a later part we will just share the Rosesso journeys from research to translations. Yep. So Rosesso vision is to aspire to be a leading technology company to bring the independence and dignity back to people's life. So some quick facts about our company. It's founded by in year 2016 when I was still a PhD student with our CEO Jen Wang and our Professor Ray Yao to commercialize the technology developed in the NUS. And then so after we start this company, we actually work. After that, we work full time. And since year 2018, we already certified the ISO 13485. It actually was one of the biggest milestone for us, because with that we actually established the systems to develop the new technologies and to commercialize it. And then currently this, our first product, the ExoGlove Hand Rehab Systems, has achieved the FDA registration, CE approval, HSA approval, and has been sold in many countries. And we have distribution network from EU, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, India, Australia, and Malaysia. So we also recently set up a subsidiary in Germany and also later part and also China. Yep. So I'll just show you this, our flagship product, the ExoGlove. So for this ExoGlove, it's a soft robotic glove that with the aim to regain the functionality of the impaired hands. What is the problem that we want to solve for these products? The mainly is on the hand impairment due to neurological disorders such as stroke and other conditions such as brain injury. So I mean, these are common problems that we have. We have a growing shortage of rehab professionals, limited intervention of manual hand therapy, and also lack of effective portable hand rehab systems that can be used in hospital and later bring back to home. Because now the COVID period, everybody stay at home, and how do we enable them to rehab and do it at home is the key problems that we want to solve. So this statistic is a bit shocking. 1 in 4 people worldwide will suffer a stroke in their lifetime. It's very shocking actually. And then currently there are 15 million people worldwide suffering from a stroke. So just to introduce a bit on the background technologies that we have, we call it soft robotic technologies. So this technology is a little bit different from the traditional robotic technologies that we use a lot of mechanical parts like plastic, linear actuators, DC motors. Also what we use actually is soft materials such as fabrics and also silicon rubbers on polymers. So with this we use air. And also, it's possible to use hydraulic as well. So then we can achieve a lot of different motions, and yet it's safe, robust, and comfortable. So when I was doing the research on these technologies, then we start to think of applications. And then at the same time, the doctors also ask us like whether we can apply these technologies to help patients, to help his patients. So that's why we developed the ExoGlove using these technologies. So there are a lot of clinical validated features with this ExoGlove. I will just briefly mention this. Like the glove can achieve continuous passive motions, task training, action observation therapy, and most importantly is portable and can bring back to home. And we are actually renting a lot of devices to patients in Singapore right now. So these are just 2 quick videos to show how it works. So we can achieve cyclic training, like for example the grasping. So the patients are looking at the videos and try to move, but let's say they can't move, and then the glove actually provides some assistance to it. And then we also incorporate some technologies to detect the intentions. So when they try to close their hand, our glove can detect it, and then we activate and motivate them. So another one is functional task training. So this is another unique selling point of our device, because our device is so light, and then the patients actually won't feel any weight on their hands. So with this, they can actually achieve some functional tasks, the simple functional tasks such as gripping a water bottle or just pinch some small cubes. So these are the 2 key functions that we have with the ExoGlove. So as I just said just now, so we actually rented some devices to patients, and you can see we actually have some encouraging results over here. We see some average 54% improvement of the grip strength of the patients after 3 months. Yeah, so this is encouraging. And also, apart from the grip strength, we actually see some improvement on the hand relaxations. As you know that at the beginning, you see the patients, the hand is very contracted. And then after 4 months of training, daily 1 hour, the spasticity was reduced. And you can see now he can actually open the hand compared to when we first start to rent our device. So these are another patients, very serious spasticity. You can see basically the hand is like had a very severe contractures. Now you can see the hand is less spastic now, and then he can actually relax well. Yeah, so now I just shift gears a bit. to talk about a little bit on our experience from research translation and from the lab to the market, because there are quite a lot of gaps, unknowns, challenges when we first started this company. So from the lab, I mean, personally, the research group, right, has achieved quite a bit. Like we published a lot of papers and then presented in a lot of conferences, a lot of media reports and some patents. And then at that time, we have this idea that yeah, we can sell very fast. And then maybe less than a year. At that time, actually, we just started to know Koping. Yeah, so he was one of our early investor also. Yeah. So only then, after we full-time working on the products and on the commercialization, we realized that there are so many things that we have to take note of. So just some keynotes like fundraising, HR, market access, sales and marketing, manufacturing later part, and then regulatory strategy as well. So from the technical point of view, there are also like competitive landscape. You have to study your competitors, standards. I mean, to us, actually it's quite new, but I mean to the industry it's very standards lah. But to us actually it's a new thing that we start to look at it and then start to apply. And verifications. After that, there are also a lot of medical terms such as design history files, design DFM, yeah, and risk analysis, which is the most important thing in the to commercialize the medical devices. So this is one of the very simplified graph for design thinking, or I can say is design control procedures, starting from user needs to inputs, process, output, and eventually commercialize a medical device. So I will just share a bit on our journey to go through this. So at the beginning, to understand the user needs, right, we actually interview a lot of people. I mean, from the Lean Launchpad that we attended from Prof classes, and after that, during the commercialization, we actually interview, and then we actually bring the real prototype to them to test. So we gather the user requirement that tell us that, okay, which color they don't like, and then which features they don't like for the existing products, and then we start to gather the user requirements. So with all these user requirements, right, then we start to formalize it and become a design requirements. Yeah. So apart from there, of course, your device must look really nice. So we also apply some industrial design. So it's not only on the aesthetic perspective, of course, it's also from scalability in terms of your manufacturing. So we also did some industrial design on our products. And after that, we formalize it and become a design inputs and put it in the documentations. So these are a lot of, these are all the points that we put in the documentations, like physical, chemical, biocompatibility, and even standards and usability. Yeah, and apart from there, as I mentioned just now, there are a few standards that also are very important. So we also look into it and make sure that we actually conform to these standards. So these standards are normally, generally product-based. There are also other standards that apply to your company itself, like ISO 13485, and from regulatory perspective, whether we fulfill the essential safety and performance of the device. Yeah. So, so during this process, we go through a lot of iterations. But I will just, to simplify it, I will just show you, okay, after design, the design process, we have these design outputs. Of course, this changed quite a bit during the process. So the design output is not just the device itself. It's actually a lot of documentations, CAD drawing, and even labeling and work instruction, how you manufacture this device, how you teach the manufacturer to help you to build this device. These are all consider the design outputs. Yeah, so of course you have outputs, you have to make sure that the output meets inputs. So we gone through quite a bit on the testing. So you can see like the first round, right, we actually failed the immunity test. So we have the touchscreen, the ESD gun just zap it, and then the touchscreen turns black. So at that time, actually my heart also went black also, because I mean it's first time now. So after that, but eventually we managed to pass the test after a few iterations. Yep. So after going through this, so these are some milestones from our company. So I will just say that I will just want to emphasize that during Feb 2018, that one was actually very important, the ISO 13485 certification. So with that, we understand the whole process from design to commercialize to manufacturing to even sales and to even distribute the products. And after that, we registered in FDA, test back in Taiwan, we obtained the CE HSA approval, and then recently we just launched in Japan and Korea. So we managed to get the approval from Korea FDA as well. Yeah, so these are some certificates like the ISO. I mean, these are the top 3 milestones that we have also, as well, like FDA cert and the CE mark certificates. Yep. So moving forward, just now the Exo Glove was our first product. It falls under the Rehab and Assistive Tech and Services. So we actually plan to expand our product line and also our servicing groups. So we also using the same similar soft robotic technologies, and also we actually currently working on the venous and joint care department that we will create a device that help them to manage the contractures of the ankle joint and also prevent the deep vein thrombosis. And apart from that, we also have compression and support groups that actually kind of complements, the product will kind of complement with our rehab, high-tech rehab devices and the venous and joint care devices. Yeah, so under this rehab and assistive group, these are something that we are planning to achieve, and we are currently working on it. So apart from the hardware, we want to marry the hardware with platform software. So with the data and all this machine learning stuff, and then after that, we can apply this service to provide service to the patients, hospital, community rehab, and eventually the home health care. Yep, so these are the product family that we have. Currently, we have 2 products, Exo Glove Pro, Pro Lux, and we are working on another one is to detect the intention of the patients through muscle electromyography. And then you can see from this video, the patients actually can try to activate the glove by detecting the muscle signals. So both closing and hand opening. Yeah, so there are some residual signals on the forearm, and then we detect it and we manage to open. So this is actually what they are trying to do, but cannot do without a glove and without a sensor. Yeah, so another one that we are working on it is a Signing Sense Suite. So these are mainly on a software and gamification platform. So we want to have a platform that can track the patient progresses, and after that we want to achieve a goal setting based on the progress, and then the therapist, the healthcare service provider can actually prescribe the services to the patients at home. Yep, so these are the platform that basically from patients go through our rehab solutions, and then we manage to achieve a remote therapy and tele-rehab, and then the doctor and therapist are able to monitor the results from the cloud. Yeah, so basically that's all from my introductions.
Okay, thank you, Hong Kai. I think this journey is very interesting, right? That you start from the science study and all the way to commercialization,
yeah,
and joint venture into really into the whole world, right? So yeah, it's very, very interesting. So very difficult to dissect, but I think what comes to mind very important is shocking, right? Is that 1 in 4 person will get a stroke. Minor, major, maybe, right? Whatever it is. And this is where what we call deep tech comes in, right? We are trying to make the world a better place. So stroke patients unable to use the hands, or they need therapy and there's not many therapies around. So can we automate it? Can we make it easier and flexible? But let's get back to why this, right? So in the first place, why you decided to do a PhD?
Oh, okay. Long story, but okay. Actually, I was not planning to do PhD when I was doing my undergrad, because at that time I remember during my 2nd year of my undergrad, actually I want to work in the healthcare industry, biomedical manufacturing industry, right, like PerkinElmer, and at that time but I wasn't managed to get in. I don't know why. And then so in the end, I worked. My internship was in IMRI, the A-Star Research Institute, one of the A-Star Research Institute. Then at that time, then I start to have feel for okay, what is the research environments? Okay. And But at that time, my impression was not that good also as well, because I feel that doing research is a bit monotonous, and then I was just cleaning some substrate every day, so it's a bit boring lah. So and then, but still during my third year, I started to work on some electronic stuff during my internship. Yeah, so I start to build some sensors to collect the gait of patients, how the patients start to work. So at that time, actually, was the project was assigned by my FYP supervisors. So then after that, during my FYP, I continue the projects, and then I managed to work with a few clinicians and also stroke patients as well. So actually, at that time, then I started to think to do PhD, because I think that I can obtain some knowledge to apply it and then to help with this group of patients. Because at that time during the FYP, I saw the patients, after they suffer from stroke, and then they actually have troubles to work and walk. Yeah, so that's why I was doing my PhD lah. And then actually why I choose that FYP project, and also partly because I have some family members lah. They actually suffer from stroke, and then like my grandma, my uncles, all these they have stroke. Actually, to be honest, I'm also a high risk group. Yeah.
so very interesting, right? So do you think that when you are doing PhD, right, you're saying that okay, you actually look at the problems and say, okay, if I can solve the problems, I can research to how to make it better, right? Solve the problems better. So do you think the PhD is only for you to become a professor? Or are you planning to become a professor?
No lah. I mean, at some point, actually, I was planning to go to the academia route, but after some feedback, and then I think that personally I'm not suitable for it. Okay. And then also, and I think another point is that actually, I was doing this kind of, I will say it's not like a basic science research. I was doing more like a applied research. So, I mean, to become a professor, right? I mean, after you graduated from PhD, I feel that I must have a very strong interest in solving some specific problems. Then I draft that research proposal and apply for a postdoc. But at that time, it's not. I'm more into applied research, and I want to kind of like commercialize a device, and then to translate this kind of technologies to be able to reach to the end customers instead of doing just pure research.
Yeah, so we when we talk about research and PhDs, generally we can also look at it from, or doctorates, we can look at it from two angles, right? One is really the academic research, where you look at basic science and discoveries, and the other one is applied research. Some people will call it industrial or professional doctorates, where you actually work on real world problems by using the science to solve it. All right, so I think that help us to dispel all this deep tech thing. You know, it's like, oh, okay, what is really deep tech? Is it very difficult? Do you really have to, you know, so academic? But yeah, there's a whole range that you work on that basically based on your interest. Now let's move on. And we all know that for the innovations, it's always whether it's deep tech or not, always a problem, right? If not, it becomes invention. Invent something and put it on the shelf, and that's about it. But we want to value add to the customer, solve customer problem, and we call it innovation, right? So in this case where the problems are really, if you look at it, you know, there's really a huge issue, right? There are not enough therapies around. There are increasing a lot of people having strokes, and they need to be rehabilitated, and therefore, how do you come up with technologies that help them? Okay? Maybe let's try to understand this loss of use of the hands, right? The hands perform how many functions?
Well, a lot. I can't count it. It's like,
so, for example, what are the basic functions for human being to survive? Right? I mean, I think most of us probably never going to count how many functions the hand use.
Yeah. So I mean, from our functional task training, we have top 5 tasks. And these tasks actually validated by the therapists and also the doctors as well. So first one, gripping. So, I mean, in terms of grip, right, there are different types of grip. Like
Right,
from
yeah.
top, you
Yeah.
try to grip like that.
Okay.
And then you have to control your wrist. And also, sometimes you have to pronate your wrist and then from here. Then because for stroke patients, right, if their wrist got this problem, you try to grip, you can't grip it. So sometimes you also need to control your wrist and then make it a functional position that you can grip. So apart from the hand, actually the wrist also very important. So these are the first one is gripping from the top. Okay. Another one is gripping, like you have to pronate your wrist and then grip, like gripping a cup lah.
Yeah.
Third one is like you grip and you have to rotate your wrist, so that it's like pouring water, water bottle. And after that, you have this kind of pinch and also tripod pinch. These are all more fine motor movements.
Okay.
So for a lot of stroke patients, even the simple grip, they have some problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if we really go back and count, right, in our daily life, and if you start listening to Hong Kai and start looking and observing what you do with your hands, really you will find that if you lost that function, that is really horrible, right? First, can you hold a cup to drink, right? I mean, don't talk about the grip or whatever, but you need to hold something like that. You see that holding action. You need to grip like that, and then you have to do writing, you have to do typing,
and also unbutton the shirt.
You button your shirt, feed yourself. So there are many functions. Just imagine that you lose that dexterity of your fingers, how much it impact your life, right? And that's the reason why you have a certain motto for Rosesso, right? And with that, what is that motto? I don't think that motto is just we are the company that provide gripping of cups, right? But it's a higher value. So what's the mission? How will you define your mission?
Our mission, just now what I mentioned, is we want to bring back patient independence and dignity. So apart from this, first thing we want to do is rehabilitate.
Yes.
So to recover the functions. But of course, we understand that some people, after they suffer from stroke or other brain injury, sometimes they might not have the hopes to recover to, let's say, 80 or 90% already.
Yeah.
So subsequently, what we want to do is assistive. So these are also one of the bigger market that we are look into. Like I can't even grip my cup to drink. I just want a device that help me to, and then I use it to drink water bottle, to drink water or just unbutton the shirts. So yeah, so these are our missions. We want to return the dignity back to the people's life.
Yeah, I want to catch on to that and say dignity. Return the dignity to the people. What do you really mean, right? If you think about a stroke patient, a person who lost the use of their hands, right? So if you lost the use of your hands or fingers or you're slightly paralyzed, what's going to happen is that you cannot feed yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot take a spoon and feed yourself. You cannot grab a cup and drink, which is the two most basic function or needs of human being to survive: water and food, right? So then what does it mean? It means that somebody will have to feed you. And when somebody need to feed you, we call caregiver, right? And if that person feed you, I think probably for the first 1 month, they're very nice to you. They feed you nicely, clean up. But just imagine repeating it for 3 years, you will get fed up. Not fed up with you, but it fed up the whole process. So I think, so if you're on the receiving party, you also won't feel good, right? You know, I'm being fed, I'm always being fed. I want to drink, somebody must feed, clean my lips and whatever. So the dignity is very important, right?
Yeah, so we rented our device to patients, right? So we see a lot of different patients with a lot of different conditions. So for example, there's one lady, so we actually interviewed her. We asked her, so what is your goals for rehabilitation and all this? Her goal was very simple. She just want to able to travel from her place to her son's place because she doesn't want to trouble her son. And yeah, so these are their dream actually quite simple, but at this point of time, it's quite difficult for them. And then she just cried because she can't do that right now. Yeah, so that's something that so I mean, return of dignity is very important, so that's why it's our vision.
Okay, so returns of dignity is very important. So I think as we all know, right, one of the important techniques that you try to understand the user or the customer, wherever you want to study, is called design thinking. And the first phase of the design thinking is always empathy, right? How do you empathize with the target, the user, right? So can you roughly go more in depth into how actually you work out the empathy process for this problem? What actually did you do?
What we did, I mean, is let's say we want to follow the standards, like it's actually usability and human factor engineering.
Okay.
So there are a lot of different techniques to put the empathy inside the design thinking. So one thing, I mean, normally what we do is observations. So we just observe how the with or without the device.
Okay.
So without the device, we observe what is their problems, whether this problem is really the pain or it's just a good to have. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So these are one thing, and also we with the device we see how they interact with the device. Whether because as a healthy person, right, when we design this, and then when the patient is using that, they might use a different way. Sometimes they use the healthy hand to do some actions that you can never imagine of. So for what I think, the observation study is actually one of the most important one. And of course, it's interview. But sometimes interview, you must have some technique. You cannot say, the interview must be open-based. You cannot, whether you like it or not. They definitely say like it. Whether you want to pay to it, then they might say no. Yeah, so these are some techniques we employ to interview the users. So, but I will say the most important one actually is observation study, field study. Yeah.
So one of the various techniques under design thinking or first phase of empathy, right? This is what we call something like first we start with observation. Okay, so you observe the user is this natural setting and environment, and the second step is that you do engagement, which is engaging with the user, trying to understand from the perspective. So that's interview. Is one of the technique, right? So observation, engagement, and of course, finally, if you really want to empathize, you have to immerse yourself, right? And sometimes it's very difficult to immerse. It's just like if you want to design something or try to understand the problems of a blind man, then you've got to cover your cloth and walk around without this, right? Then suddenly your sensory organs becomes much more what you call sensitive, right? But you got to immerse, you got to understand. But sometimes it's just difficult. But these are the various steps that we try to use in design thinking, empathy phase. Let me repeat: observation and engagement and immersion. Okay, good. So you not just understand the user, right? Because from solution point of view, we not just understand the user, but we must also talk to different people, right? So how many people have you actually interviewed, engaged, and talked to?
I think quite a lot. I mean,
in the hundreds or
more than that.
More than that.
So actually, I know we first met. I first met Jane, right? Is from a course called TED Launch. So from School of Engineering, Faculty of Engineering. So at that time, we actually interviewed a lot of people. I would say 50. So they teach us some technique to interview people, like not only on the end users, because end user, they are the one that use your device, but they might not be the one that purchase it. So we actually need to interview who has the right to purchase, who has the authority to make the purchase decisions. For example, for like family members. For hospital, actually, it's like the purchasing department, or even those KOL like doctors and therapists and all this. So these are the people that we interview. And then after that, Lean Launchpad, which Prof Neo was teaching that. So we also interview more than 100 people. Yeah, so it's not only interview people. We also have to look at other perspectives. Like some people say this feature's nice, but we have to put it and analyze it and say whether it's must-have, good to have, and also in terms of manufacturing, whether this features is feasible or not, whether it actually incur additional cost that doesn't make sense. Yeah, so these are something.
So when you interview, right, not just interview the user, right? How do you categorize them?
Categorize, I mean end user, KOL and all the KOL.
Yeah, so what's KOL? People
KOL is the
KOL, right?
KOL is the key opinion leader. So it's someone that maybe they are kind of like the ambassador for your device. Once this hospital use that, and then this because imagine the patients, right, once they go to the rehab center, so they will start, when they first suffer from stroke, right, they will do inpatient rehab. So they will meet a therapist. So this therapy actually is a KOL, because this therapist, they might use our device. If the device is available in that hospital, then they might actually encourage the patient, saying that, okay, if you want to continue to do more exercise at home, you can rent this device from this company. And these are one of the KOL, but these are just ambassador, I would say. But there might be some KOL like a doctor and all this that can influence the purchase decisions.
Yeah, so you interview key opinion leader or KOL, the patient, the caregiver. Who else? Anyone else?
I would say key partners as well. Like key partners, I will say in terms of manufacturing as well. So like we have this prototype in mind when we manufacture, and which part is scalable. I mean, yeah, like for example, our soft actuators, we actually went through a lot of design, because the first design might not be scalable. So these are some part of our interview as well, because they see our design, they think that, okay, it's not scalable. And then, I mean, once we try to sell 100 is possible, but when we go to thousands, it's not scalable. So the cost will be very high. So that's why this is part of the interview process. We also interview the manufacturing partner, and actually we also interview with some competitors.
Even competitors. Yeah.
So I mean, with the privilege of NUS students, so sometimes people like NUS email accounts, you know. So we just use the email account to check our potential competitors.
As part of your research, as part of your PhD research, okay? Yeah, but of course in commercial you don't try not to do
of course cannot. Of course cannot.
Yeah. So let's talk about the science behind it, right? So it's actually air pressure, right? You call it pneumatic, or what kind of technology do you really call this science?
It's soft robotics.
Soft robotics.
Soft robotics. What does it mean?
So what it means, hard and soft?
Okay, so it depends on the definitions. So a general definition is actually soft robotics means that they are using soft materials. So these soft materials are inherently compliant and safe. So imagine, like, let's say you imagine you have we call it exoskeletons. That exoskeleton is something that apply to your body and then try to help you to move the joints, like walking exoskeleton, hand exoskeleton. So imagine that it's a traditional robotics, like you use a motor, you apply to it. One thing is very expensive, and one thing is very heavy. Another one is more on the robotics side. A lot of people, when they use traditional robots, they try to achieve impedance control. What does it mean? I need to control the force so that it's just nice that it won't hurt you. And then how to achieve that force control? I need a lot of additional sensors. So this all added to the cost of these devices. So that's why a lot of rehab devices, or even the exoskeleton in the market, right, they can be few 100,000 kind of price range. Okay. So for soft materials, they are inherently compliant. So that means sometimes I don't need this kind of controls. Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting, right? When we look at robotics, right, and for example, those mechanical things, with motors, with actuators, right, the hard actuators. So just imagine you get a hard actuators to grab an egg, you probably crush it. Right?
Yes.
So soft robotics is like, okay, I'm very soft and gentle on you.
Yeah. So like, for example, the egg examples are for a traditional gripper. Sometimes you must put some force sensor at the end effector side, so that you touch and then you feel it, okay, this force just nice, then you just do that. But for soft robotics, you might not need that. So because they are inherent compliance, they can just adapt to any shapes. And then of course, there are some science behind to like which positions and all this.
Okay, so that's very interesting, right? So it's pumping air, right?
Yeah.
So it's pumping air into the glove. So let's if you look at the glove, right? So we pump air in the glove. Just imagine, right? So there are tubings there are tubings here, and then we pump air. So how, this is really the science part, right? How do you control such that individual fingers is easy because you can pump air through this line, right? Or pipes. But how do you control like every
individual joints, right?
Joints, yes.
Okay, so I will say technically it's very easy to achieve that with soft robotics.
Okay, that's your PhD, right?
Yeah, I mean, from PhD point of view, well, of course, I want to make sure that I can achieve every single joint of actuations, right? It looks cool. I have a lot of degree of freedoms, and yet is lighter than the traditional robot, because traditional robots, that means I need to put each motors on each joint.
One motor in each joint.
Yeah, so it's very
lots
simple.
of motor becomes
Yeah.
a Iron Man.
Yeah.
Right. So now you donate.
Using air if we want to achieve this, we can offset all these motors and then put it in the control units, and then this control unit can direct the airflow to each individual channels to achieve that. But of course, commercialized point of view, then it comes to a questions like whether we really need that individual joint control, whether individual finger is enough instead of the individual joints.
Right, yeah.
So these are some interview process that we went through.
So the interesting part is that your research shows that you can pump air and then you can control every joints.
Yes.
But when you actually come out with the products, it's really necessary to come to joints, or just a finger turning is good enough. All right,
So,
great.
Yeah, to come out with,
yeah.
to make a decision on these features, right?
Yeah.
But of course, there are some people say that individual is good. I want to have a lot of features.
So it's a resolution of the granularity of the control, right?
Yeah.
How refined you want it to be.
Yes.
So it's interesting, right? So you have research into all these deep technology, and the question is how do you actually translate it into daily use, okay? And again, the science is just pumping air, right? But of course, there are a lot more engineering and mathematics.
There are a lot of research questions to achieve this soft actuation. I mean, apart from commercialization. So at that time, what we do is actually we need to use air, but how high is the air pressure? If the pressure is very high, I need a big pumps. Then it's not feasible to commercialize it.
Yeah.
So then it comes to a research question like, how can I adjust the material or tunes the properties of the geometry of the actuators design such that I can achieve higher force with less air pressure. So I mean, intuitively we just say that higher pressure, higher force. But sometimes these are the research that I was doing, like how can I achieve higher force with less air pressure such that when I commercialize it, my controller unit can be very portable and can bring, portable to bring back to home. Yeah.
Okay, now let's move on to another topic, right? Which is interesting because in terms of commercialization, right? So we have this medical device, which is the government or certain authority to say yes, it can be used, and also that you have lots of tests. Now you have a test that you have a gun that what they call electrostatic.
Yeah, electrostatic discharge.
How much you inject?
15 kilovolts.
15 kilovolts.
Yeah.
It's like what is it? It's not a lightning, right?
I think less than that.
Less than that.
It's
right?
a static.
Why do you do that? Why do you need to have this kind of test?
Okay. I mean, if you imagine, so you are under a life-saving medical device, like let's say a ventilator. So what if this ventilator, when you start to operate, right? Some people pass by and then just touch it. There is some static. So sometimes the static can be quite high, but you don't know. And then what if this static caused the ventilator to stop operate?
Okay.
It might cause the patient to die. So that's why we need to go through a lot of all these tests based on our risk analysis. So for example, our device inherently is quite safe lah. So even like the touchscreen failed, the device still can work, but it might cause user inconvenience. But of course, this risk is less compared to those life-saving products. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah, these tests are important based on the risk analysis, like to ensure that the device is safe. We haven't talked about the effectiveness yet.
Yeah,
so,
okay. Yeah. So we all know this device need to be tested, and there are many tests to be done, right? Which is electrostatic discharge, and you see a lot of terminologies, EN 60601, EMI, EMC kind of thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about quality, right? What is this ISO 13485, right? Because what is it for?
Okay, so this is it's not only on the product itself. ISO 13485 is a quality system for that organizations, I will say. It's something like the ISO 9001 is to ensure that your operations in terms of design, in terms of manufacturing, sales, distributions, and even purchasing. Purchasing is not like, I want to purchase this, click, then just do it. And also supplier control and all this. So this ISO 13485 is a set of standards and guidelines that show that it's not must follow, but it's you have to follow this to compliant to this standard.
Right.
But just that the regulatory authority, they want you to certify to this ISO 13485 to have a, ease of mind saying that you guys are, the device that you guys produce, right, follow a certain quality procedures.
Okay.
So like,
Right.
let's say your design procedure, you follow the design inputs, make sure that your device, when you do the design requirements, you actually really collect the user requirements. And also, let's say in terms of manufacturing, you did a proper incoming testing, you did a proper supplier control. And eventually, to the sales and distribution as well, like whether you did your PO, purchase request, purchase order, all this systematically. Because eventually, let's say this device got problems, based on the serial number, whether I can trace back to which lot and all this. So these are all a set of guidelines that are set under the 13485.
Okay, so it's a whole quality process to
Yes.
ensure that your product is consistently reliable.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I saw in your slide just now, you talk about this whole review process, right? And two words comes out. One in the diagram, that two words comes out as called verification and validation, right? So maybe V and V, huh? So what's the difference between verification and validation?
Oh, this one a lot of people confuse. I'm not sure whether I'm 100% correct. I just use a simple word. Verifications for this diagram is actually show that output meets input. So for example, let's say I show that, very simple, I say my design input show that my glove has to be weight less than 200 grams. Verification is that, okay, I just verify that showing that my output, all this produced, can meet the requirements, can meet the inputs, which is less than 200 grams. So verification is like, can be very simple as that, like you have 10 gloves, put on the weight, and then measure it, and put it under a documentation verification report, show that, yeah, these are very simple verification. There are some others verification parts, like even the ESD, the electrostatic discharge test, is also part of the verification, because we have this input showing that this have to meet the 60601-1-2, and then the test was the verification test, and then after that we have that report, so that we have this activity show that our output meets the input. So these are verification. Validation is slightly, it's actually to ensure that your device meets the customer need, the user need. So these are the validation.
So I think technically we'll put it this way, right? Validation is to check whether you meet customer needs, right? Verification is to check whether it meets your product spec.
Yes.
Right? So for those who are not very clear, maybe you can look at it this way, right? Let's say bubble tea, right? One of the important component of bubble tea is that, what's that thing called? The bubble tea, you know, the ball, right? Yeah. So as a product spec, it got to be have certain, we call it QQ. I don't know how to describe it. So and that you need some like how much when you bite into it, the force, the strength, and all these things, right? The mechanical part of that ball. But at the end, it's not how this thing work, right? It's how the customer drink it and have that, wow, the satisfactory feeling. That matters. But the satisfactory feeling is maybe delivered by the specs where it is like certain strength, certain bite, certain whatever. So I think that's the difference, right? So and that's the industry called verification and validation. Okay, so we move on from the quality part of it, and you have actually go very far, right? The company has actually go very far from coming out with a product, then go overseas, right? So why do you go overseas so fast, right? Go get certification or approval in many countries. Any reason on it?
Frankly speaking, Singapore market is small.
Okay.
So that is the main reason. And of course, in terms of the acceptance of this kind of device, high-tech rehab devices, overseas are much more established, like EU, Germany. That's why we set up a subsidiary in Germany, because Germany, they have a very established reimbursement guidelines as well. Sometimes, like for example, in Singapore, the reimbursement landscape is still not very established yet, and people still need to pay out of pocket for some kind of this kind of devices. But in US and EU, they are a bit more established, and then it's very easy to educate them to use our device. Because sometimes if you have a bad user they don't know how to, either they don't know or they use your device wrongly, they might give you, as a result, they might give you a bad feedback and all this. So sometimes, simple term is we need an educated customer as well to actually launch this device overseas and then to make it bigger and bigger. Yeah.
So what are the challenges you face when you are trying to bring your innovations overseas?
In terms of medical device, one of the challenge, of course, is the regulatory approval because it's not like software and all this e-commerce stuff, right? I can just launch a platform, then apply to it. Localization may be okay, but you need a team to understand the people there, then do some localizations, right? But for medical device, you have some additional barrier like the regulatory approval. So each country are slightly different. Some countries are largely different, but like in Southeast Asia, there are some harmonizations. But still, we think that it might be easy, but still, actually, we have to go through each regulatory authority to do that. So. So these are one of the challenges, and additionally, I think it's a language and all this, and then reimbursement landscape as well for medical devices.
Yeah, so from a commercialization point of view, right? We always look at why you need to go overseas really because of the market, right? We want it to be a global product, so we must plan to go overseas. And after all, Singapore with 5 million population, residential population, is unable to compare to a big city in China or New York. So we definitely need to have a thinking of we're not just serving a small group of people, but the global population. So when it comes to innovation, we need to have, I always use a very simple formula that I invented myself called the 3S, very easy. First is sizable, right? It must have a sizable market. And a lot of people say, sizable really depends on you, right? 100 million revenue is sizable. Some people say 1 billion is sizable. But you've got to think about the size is this. If you are doing it for yourself using your own money, that's fine. But if you want somebody to invest, right, whether it's an angel or the venture capital, somebody invests, then they need your market to be big, right?
Yep.
So that's the sizability. And we're talking about 100 million, 500 million and above in annual revenue or market size. So that first is sizable. Second thing really important is sustainable. And we're not talking about sustainability in the climate change or whatever. It's just, can you sustain a business? And a lot of way you sustain a business is really in deep tech is your technology, your science. You know, science and technology are protected by intellectual property, your trade secret, your patents. And the end of the day is scalable, right? How far? You know, be a big market size, can you really scale very fast, right? And in the digital world, it's very easy. You put on a website, everybody knows. But some physical products need distributor or people
local service center.
Local services. So let's talk about sustainability, right? Intellectual property. How do you protect your intellectual property?
For intellectual property, got different components, like IP, as in patents, and of course, where do we choose our supplier? How do we make this is also part of the intellectual property. So we have patents from license from the US. How many patents you have? Currently, we have three.
So the patents are from your PhD research?
One of it, two of it, yes, and another one is our company.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have background IP and device IP. I would say, background IP more on the soft actuator design and all this. Then the device IP is like how do we put this together and what kind of features that we put inside. So these are patents. And then there are some others trade secret, like how do we manufacture the soft actuators. So these are all might not be disclosed in the patent because we want to protect it.
Yeah, you want to protect it as a secret, right?
Yeah.
So maybe right now we should go to get some questions from people who are tuning in, and I'll answer 3 questions. All right, Hexaglove help patients with Parkinson?
For right now, this one is a bit difficult because there are different needs. For Parkinson patients, their hand have some tremor. So, normally the glove you need to, for this group of patients, you need to stabilize it. So there might be another product that can able to help with this. So because it's different user needs. So from stroke patients and some other patients with brain injury, the problem is that they can't move. They can't even move. They can close. They might not be able to open.
Correct.
Yeah, for Parkinson patients, is that they might be able to close and open, but with some tremor. So it's different. Yeah.
So your innovation is not for this problem.
But it's potentially we can use that. But right now it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the next question.
The soft robotic technologies potentially can use that for exoglove because this one is like a exoskeletons. So you must have the hand so that you put on it. But it's possible to create something like a prosthetic so that it can be used in the amputees.
So it's prosthetic. That means you actually create artificial hands, right?
Yes.
The full-blown artificial hands.
Yeah, the technology is possible to do that, and then we can use that. Even lighter. And then prosthetic actually is a good. Potentially good application because for prosthetic, right, they normally build the fingers, they want to control the fingers, and then, how can we prevent the fingers to crush the hand? Then soft actuator, then you can use that to, safely to grip anything.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are, the technology is possible.
So next question, last question.
Yes. Yeah, so we are targeting, we have some customer with, some customer actually is kids. So, sometimes some kids actually have some stroke as well. So it's not only on the adults and also the cerebral palsy patients. So yeah, so these are, as long as because this question is with movement impairment. So of course it can be used. And then there are different group of kids that have some cognitive impact. So these are, then our other product might be able to help with that.
So great. It looks like your science can be applied for many situations, but you really have to choose one in order to commercialize.
Beachhead market.
Beachhead market.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. And one more question. Okay, I thought we have 3, then now we have 4. Actually, I have okay, carry on. I'll give you a moment. All right. So can I ask you one more question from myself, right? How can you use this technology to help astronauts in space?
Oh, okay. Actually, there are some people doing some research on that also because astronaut, right? I think they have some. They need some help with the gripping, right? Okay. And then, this can be an assistive device that enhance your grip. I know there's one project, the Iron Hand project.
Iron Hand project.
NASA is doing that. So what they do actually is it's like an exoskeleton to help you to enhance basically it's to enhance your performance, like in terms of gripping and all this. Yeah.
All right, last question. Is it medical device? What's our clinical trials? That should be up your sleeve.
Yeah, so this device are medical devices. And then
which class then?
For FDA is class 1, and for CE, HSA is class B, CE is class 2A. So what are the clinical trials conducted? Yeah, we conducted some clinical trials and clinical evaluations. So in terms of commercializations, right, we have some activities called evaluations, and we have some activities called trials. So evaluation means that you have to evaluate some other trials conducted, and then to prove that your device is safe and efficient.
So evaluation is just comparison.
Comparison analysis, So basically clinical trials you conduct first, you have that data, and then you combine with other manufacturing data, your test and all this, then you do the evaluation. You submit a clinical evaluation report. Some people, they will need that, like HSA, CE, the notified body, they might need that to do that. So for a medical device, you have to conduct clinical trials, of course, and then, but there are sometimes you might not need, you might have a sufficient data to do that already. Yeah. And sometimes you still need a clinical trial even after you get a regulatory approval. So it's a post-market surveillance. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So I think one of the important things in clinical trial is that we think, or medical device approval, we always say efficacy, right? How well it works, right? And they have different measurements.
Yeah, so to prove efficacy, of course, normally, safety quite straightforward. Yes. You run a lot of tests and all this risk analysis. For efficacy, normally you need to do trial to prove that. Okay. And then, of course, under the trial, there are a lot of different thing to take note lah, like the clinical trial, whether it's a RCT trial, how many patients that you're going to recruit. And,
Yeah. So it's a very statistical kind of thing, right? We call power analysis. All right, good. Thank you very much, Dr. Yap, for coming on our show.
Thanks.
All right, and we stay tuned. Tomorrow, we have another speaker. We have another guest. Is Dr. Sean Lee of E3A Healthcare. Why E3A? He will explain, and that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And he's looking at jaundice for babies. I think also very exciting. Okay, then after that, just another advertisement. I think you have seen this before. 1st of July, please sign up for the Ed Extra with the Life of Astronauts, where Jeff Williams, his former rank is Colonel. Jeff Williams will be coming on board to talk about the training to be the astronaut, the quality, the attributes, and his experience on Space Shuttle, International Space Station, and couple of spacewalks. Sounds easy, right? Okay, but key in, because when August, Jeff and I will be running a whole series of space technology, from rockets to International Space Stations to moons to Mars, and that's why I call Ed Extra to the stars. And when you attend everything, I will ask Jeff, to give you a personal autograph picture. All right, so keep in tune.
Can you invite Elon Musk also?
All right, see you in the next session.